Once you find yourself in conflict with a narcissist, it's a virtual guarantee they're going to start playing head games with you. That's why I put together a new course. It's very extensive called Anger Games. I'm going to teach you how to manage anger and conflict with a narcissist. There's a link below that's going to show you how to register, and I hope that you find it to be very insightful. I know when many people talk about the pattern of narcissism, it's very tempting just to say summarily every one of them has nothing but awful ingredients. There's nothing redeemable about them. And frankly, some narcissists seem intent to prove exactly that point. But I want to ask a question here today that's going to help us bring a sense of objectivity to our efforts to know how to respond to them. And that question is, would it be accurate to state that everything that a narcissist is attempting to do in their life is 100% completely wrong? And my answer there is no, not necessarily. Now, many of them are so far down the spectrum of narcissism, and it is a pattern on the spectrum, that whatever they do is probably going to bring disaster. So I get that. We're not going to say, they're just, really nice people that just went astray. Some of them are just downright evil. I totally get that. But when you look into that individual's backstory and you ask, how did they get to the place where they are right now? What we're going to see is they're in a very strong self-preservation mode. Pause right there. Is self-preservation a bad thing? Is that something that we need to scorn someone for? And the answer is no. But we can also say that self-preservation desire that they have is way out of balance. And many of them, the deeper they go into their adult years, it gets extremely out of balance. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But actually, if you look at narcissists and their deep background, grade school, adolescence, and maybe even the young adult years, you can see that there are certain things that came upon them and prompted some thoughts in them that fed into their sense of self-preservation that actually makes some sense. For example, that individual could go back and say, well, I found out that there were key people in my life that just weren't safe. And so they put up a wall of defense. Or those individuals, narcissistic people, would go back and say, there would be times when I just felt inept. I didn't know what to do whenever I was faced with individuals who were very difficult in coming against me. And so bad patterns creeped in. Or they might look back and reflect and say, well, if I did express my needs, I might be met with shame or ridicule. I didn't want that. Or they might say something like, the anger of key people in my life scared me. The control tendency of other individuals in my life scared me. And with certain individuals, I felt regularly irrelevant or dismissed or invalidated. So you look back on the history of most narcissistic individuals, and they could say, yeah, I developed this shell of protection around me. I wanted to preserve who I was. Okay, that makes sense. And yet something happens in their lives that causes them to go further and further into their dysfunction, because that self-preservation effort is, like I say, way out of balance. And it goes back to what I mentioned about them not being trained very well to deal with personal issues. They carry a certain, what I call psychological or emotional incompetence. They don't have good coping skills. Their goal of self-preservation is bogged down in guttural selfishness. And then in addition, along the way, as they're trying to preserve themselves, they're actually mimicking the very negative ingredients that the people in their lives gave them. And so they're not helping their cause any at all. And so when we take a look at how narcissists got way out of balance, we can say, yes, self-preservation is good, but there's one core ingredient that they never did really learn to master, in fact, to the extent that where they'll even ridicule it, that keeps them in that out of balance mindset. Excuse me. And that core ingredient is humility. If an individual has humility in their self-preserving mode, they would conclude, well, I got to remind myself it's not always about me, and I need to understand that there is confusion in me, but there's also confusion in other individuals, and I need to learn how to have some objectivity. And if they had that humility, they would remind themselves that it's the ultimate hypocrisy to insult individuals as you're on your self-preservation path, or to demean other individuals, or to become harshly angry. Or if they had that humility, they would ultimately remind themselves that the goal of self-preservation could still be managed inside the context of mutuality. And then if others are proven to be incapable of joining with them, then they're not doing themselves or anyone else any favors by sticking around in negative circumstances. And you can have assertiveness without having to be demeaning. That's what humility would do, and that's how a person would become balanced. Narcissists, though, are so out of balance because their self-preservation has all of this craving for control and condescension. It's driven by a need to be superior. There's a false narrative that they operate with, like I have to be better than everybody else, and everybody else is out to get me. They wind up with the victim's mindset. I mean, they have so many patterns of thinking that are on the inside that their self-preservation goes haywire. Let's take a closer look at this. If indeed you had healthy, balanced self-preservation, what would a balanced view look like as you move forward? And, how could we differentiate ourselves from where the narcissist is coming from? For example, when you're in balance in your self-preservation mode, we would say that you wouldn't really feel any need to seek another person's destruction or their subjugation or debasement. That wouldn't be a part of your equation. If you had a balance in your life, you would accept the inevitability of pain. And I'm not saying that you would enjoy it or you would appreciate it, but it would create a mindset of objectivity. I'm hurting, you're hurting. Pain is part of the human condition. We live in a broken world, and you would be able to come to terms with that in such a way where you would try to figure out, well, how can I be a person that moves forward without having to be an inflictor of even more pain? If you had balance in your life, you could manage your differences with others without a know-it-all attitude. Does the narcissist ever come to you like thinking, well, I know everything that needs to be known? That's their imbalance. They're trying to preserve themselves, but at everybody else's expense with an exaggerated attitude of their own importance. In balance, your efforts to change would be driven by insight and reflective thinking, as opposed to just raw emotion. You wouldn't be driven by that. With balance, you would respect the right of individuals to choose, your own right and the right of the individual in front of you. If somebody chooses to be mean, it's like, I realize you have that option. Now I have an option too. I'm going to figure it out. And so you wouldn't get caught in all of the subjective emotion. You could think things through very carefully. If you were living in balance, you would acknowledge the feelings of other individuals and their wrongs without having to go into a place of hatred and contempt. A balanced person would say, yeah, that's always an option, but is that the kind of person that I would want to be? Humility wouldn't really want to take in that direction. If you had balance in your self-preservation, you would have a sense of patience, especially with your own self. And then in addition, and this is a big one, if you were in balance in your efforts, you would try to find control, yes, in your life without having to control other individuals. It's not like you would say, well, there's a new sheriff in town and I'm going to tell everybody what to do. But instead, you would find control by defining who you are and living inside your healthy parameters. We call that healthy boundaries. In balance, you would have no need to shame other individuals. And yet you would still hold on to your own standards of ethics and morality. You would have a sense of right and wrong, but you wouldn't use it as a weapon against others. If you were a balanced person, you would have assertiveness in your life, yes. And that assertiveness would keep you from suppressing and appeasing toward other individuals. But assertiveness, by its very definition, means that you stand up for who you are while not feeling the need to denigrate the other person in front of you. And then in addition, a balanced individual would approach strain and difficulty, and they would approach their self-preservation efforts with nuance in mind. It's like, I know there's always a backstory. Let me make sure that I'm fully aware of all of that. Now, like I say, narcissists, okay, I'll hand it to him. I'm glad you're in self-preservation mode. It would only be nice if you could do it with the understanding that conscientiousness is required when you're in self-preservation. You have your needs, but so does everybody else around you. Let's factor that in. Let's do it in a team kind of play, and it would lead you to a place of knowing and understanding wisdom. Unfortunately, because narcissists are so devoted to their own self-absorption, to their own alternate reality, they have such thick walls of defense that they've built up through the years as they've tried to respond to what they don't like. They have such just a haughtiness in general that they're not going to be able to come to that place of balance. And so it's going to be up to you to maintain your balance, knowing that you're dealing with an imbalanced person. And, the sad thing is there are two truths that go along with humility that narcissists are just never going to be able to lock into. And that is, first, humility is anchored in honesty. Honesty about yourself, honesty about others, the ability to objectively weigh things. And narcissists can't acknowledge that at all. And then in addition, we're also going to say, the narcissist who's trying to find power and dominance, in other words, strength, misses the whole point that says humility is the ultimate strength. That's something they can't appreciate, and as a result, they're going to stay out of balance. Your task is to not get inside their imbalanced world and just get into a whirlwind of their making. Your task is to say, well, I am in self-preservation mode, aren't we all? But I want to do it in such a way that is anchored in goodness and decency. You know, our mantra here on Team Healthy, Dr. C, DRC, stands for dignity, respect, and civility. I want to hold that in mind even as I move forward in trying to preserve what I know is wisest and best. Now, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I hope that that was something you would do. We're going to keep more videos coming your way, and I hope it's part of your learning efforts as you go on your journey. I appreciate you allowing me to be on that path with you. If you have a need for therapy, and I know some of the times when you're trying to deal with these imbalanced individuals, it's helpful for somebody to come alongside with you and say, I'd like to help you figure out how you can maintain your sense of equilibrium. I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below the video that'll take you to their website. And it's so good for them to just say, let's talk, let's figure it out. I want to know you. Let's see if we can get some good reason to this. And if that's a need that you would have, please go through the link and get the help that you would need. Also, through the years of my 40 years of therapy, I picked up a few ideas and thoughts along the way. And now, as I'm in my semi-retirement, I put together courses. And these are online courses, classes that you can do at your own pace that are available on our website. And each class has at least 25 teaching videos with documents and guided questions. We have my new one, Anger Games, about how not to get sucked into all of the anger that the narcissist throws at you. This is me about those boundaries we're talking about. Free to be, finding yourself, ready, set, connect, having a healthy connection. So please, if that's something you would need, go and check that out. It's on our website, along with my webinars, which are 90-minute presentations, and then many articles, access to our podcast, and then, of course, my books. You know, it's good to have self-preservation. I applaud anybody that says, I want to take good care of myself. It's not good when you have self-preservation and then you lock in with all the ingredients that narcissism brings with it. That's when you know you're way, way out of balance. I'm hoping in a sense of humility, you can realize I owe it to myself. I owe it to the world in front of me to be a reasonable individual, but I'm not going to be so filled with who I am that I wind up taking care of myself at everybody else's expense. We're not going to do that. In doing so, I'm hoping that it can allow you to say, well, I know that I'm on a path towards goodness and wholeness and decency. And as you understand that about yourself, it allows you to go deeper and deeper into your place of peace.